Ma'am, why are you unlocking my house?
Your house? I've lived here for 12 years.
No, that's impossible. I bought this place. I have the keys.
I paid $300,000 for a house that didn't belong to the man who sold it to me. And when I showed up with the keys, ready to move in, I found out he never existed at all. My name is Owen Bennett, and I'm 72 years old now. What I'm about to tell you happened back in 1987, but I've kept it to myself for over 3 decades. Not because I was ashamed, though maybe I should have been. Not because I was scared, though there were moments I absolutely was. I kept quiet because admitting what happened meant admitting I'd been the biggest fool in 3 counties. But I'm old now, and secrets get heavy when you carry them too long. So here it is. The whole truth about the house on Maple Ridge Road and the man who sold me something he never owned. But before we continue, hit that like button if you've ever trusted the wrong person, and subscribe, because this story gets way worse before it gets better. It was August of 1987. I was 34 years old, working as a sales manager at a furniture store in Richmond, Virginia. My wife Sarah was pregnant with our second child, and we were bursting at the seams in our tiny 2-bedroom apartment. Our daughter Emma was 5, and she needed her own room. We needed space. We needed a yard. We needed a real home. I'd been saving for years. Every bonus, every bit of overtime, every tax return went straight into our house fund. We had $60,000 saved up, which back then was enough for a solid down payment on something nice. Sarah had been clipping listings from the newspaper every Sunday, circling properties with a red pen, dreaming out loud about which ones had the best kitchens or the biggest backyards. We'd been looking for about 4 months, seen maybe 20 houses. Some were too expensive, some were too small, some were in neighborhoods that made Sarah nervous. We were getting discouraged. The market was hot that summer. Houses were selling within days of being listed. We'd lost out on 3 different places because someone else swooped in with a cash offer before we could even schedule a second viewing. Then I met Richard Castellano. I remember the exact moment. It was a Thursday afternoon, around 2 o'clock. I was on my lunch break, sitting in my car in the furniture store parking lot, eating a sandwich and reading through the classifieds. There was an ad that caught my eye. It wasn't from a real estate agency. It was a private sale. The ad said, "Beautiful 4BR Colonial, Maple Ridge area, needs quick sale, owner motivated. Call Richard," and then a phone number. The Maple Ridge area was exactly where we wanted to be. Good schools, quiet streets, about 20 minutes from my work. 4 bedrooms meant plenty of space. And the words "needs quick sale" and "owner motivated" made my heart skip. Maybe, just maybe, this could be our chance to get a deal. I called the number right there from a payphone outside a gas station. I was so nervous I fumbled the coins twice before getting them in the slot. A man answered on the 3rd ring. His voice was smooth, friendly, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. Maybe Italian, maybe Greek. "Hello, this is Richard." "Hi, yeah? I'm calling about the house for sale in Maple Ridge," I said. "The one in today's paper?" "Ah, yes, thank you for calling. You're actually the first person to reach out. I just placed that ad this morning." He sounded genuinely pleased to hear from me. "Are you currently in the market for a home?" "I am. My wife and I have been looking for a few months now. We've got a 5-year-old and another baby on the way." "Congratulations. A growing family needs a proper home. This house would be perfect for you. 4 large bedrooms, 2.5 baths, finished basement, big fenced backyard. It's a wonderful neighborhood. Very safe, very quiet. Can I ask why you're selling?" I said, "And why you're not going through an agent?" He laughed, a warm, disarming sound. "Good questions. Smart questions. I appreciate a careful buyer. Here's the situation. I got transferred for work. I'm moving to California in 3 weeks. company is relocating me to their San Francisco office. It all happened very fast. I need to sell quickly, and I don't want to wait around for an agent to take their sweet time or their big commission. I'd rather pass those savings on to the buyer and just get this done. It made sense. It all made perfect sense. What are you asking for it? Well, I had it appraised 6 months ago at $320,000. But like I said, I need to move fast. I'm willing to let it go for $285. Cash buyers preferred, but I'm flexible on financing if you're pre-approved. My hands were sweating. $285,000 for a house worth $320? In the neighborhood we wanted? This was exactly the kind of opportunity we'd been hoping for. I'd love to see it, I said, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. Of course, when works for you. I'm available pretty much any time this week. We scheduled a showing for Saturday morning. I hung up that payphone feeling like I'd just won the lottery. I could barely focus on work for the rest of the day. That evening, when I told Sarah about the house, she was cautiously excited, but also practical, like she always was. It sounds too good to be true, she said, folding laundry at the kitchen table while Emma colored in a coloring book on the floor. I know it sounds that way, I said, but the guy has a legitimate reason. He's being transferred. He needs a quick sale. It happens. We'll see it first before we get excited, she said. But I could see the hope in her eyes. Saturday morning came. Sarah, Emma, and I drove out to Maple Ridge. The address Richard had given me was 847 Maple Ridge Road. When we pulled up, my first thought was that the house was even better than I'd imagined. It was a beautiful colonial-style home, white with black shutters. A big front porch with 2 rocking chairs. Mature trees in the yard. The lawn was perfectly maintained. Flower beds along the walkway. It looked like something out of a magazine. Richard was waiting for us on the porch. He was probably in his late 40s, well dressed in slacks and a polo shirt, dark hair graying at the temples. He had a warm smile and a firm handshake. Owen, great to meet you in person. And you must be Sarah. And who's this little one? I'm Emma, my daughter said shyly, hiding behind Sarah's leg. Well, Emma, I think you're going to love this house. There's a swing set in the backyard. Come on, let me show you folks around. The inside was immaculate. Hardwood floors, crown molding, a fireplace in the living room, a big updated kitchen with new appliances. The bedrooms were spacious. The master had a walk-in closet. The basement was finished with wall-to-wall carpeting and could easily be a playroom or a den. Sarah was trying not to show it, but I could tell she was falling in love with the place. Emma was already running around, claiming which room would be hers. We stood in the backyard, watching Emma play on the swing set, and I turned to Richard. I have to be honest with you. This place is incredible. I'm wondering why it's still available. Why haven't you been flooded with offers? He smiled. I only put the ad in the paper yesterday. And truthfully, I'm not really advertising it widely. I don't want a circus. I don't want 15 different families trampling through here. I'd rather find the right buyer, someone who's going to love this house and take care of it. You folks seem like good people. This seems like a good fit. What's the next step? I asked. Well, if you're interested, I'd need a deposit to take it off the market. Then we can schedule a closing. I'm working with a title company to handle all the paperwork. Everything legal and above board. I just want to make this as simple as possible for both of us. How much of a deposit? Sarah asked. 10% is standard. So that'd be $28,500. That holds the house for you, and then the rest is due at closing. Sarah and I exchanged a look. $28,000 was a big chunk of our savings, but it wasn't unusual for a deposit. Can we have a couple days to think about it? I asked. Of course. Take the weekend. But I do have 2 other showings scheduled for Monday, so I can't promise it'll still be here if you wait too long. I don't mean to pressure you. just being transparent. We thanked him and drove home. The whole way back, Sarah and I went back and forth. It felt right. It felt perfect. But it also felt fast. Too fast, maybe. We should have our own inspector look at it, Sarah said. Absolutely, I agreed. And we should verify everything with the title company. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about losing out on another house. I kept thinking about Emma having her own room, about the baby having a nursery, about Sarah finally having the kitchen she deserved. Sunday morning, I called Richard. We want to move forward, I said, but we'd like to have an inspector come through, and we'd like to confirm everything with the title company you're using. Smart move, Richard said. I'd expect nothing less. The title company is Heritage Title Services, over on Broad Street. Ask for Linda Chun. She's handling everything. As for an inspector, bring whoever you want. How about Tuesday afternoon? Does that work? That works. We hired an inspector, a guy named Tom Murphy, who came recommended by a friend. Tom went through that house top to bottom on Tuesday, checked the foundation, the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, everything. When he was done, he gave me his report. It's solid, he said. Really solid. No major issues. Some minor wear and tear, but nothing that concerns me. Whoever's been maintaining this place has done a good job. You're getting a good house here, Owen. I felt a wave of relief. Sarah called the title company on Wednesday morning. She spoke to Linda Chun directly. Yes, we're handling the sale for Mr. Castellano, Linda confirmed. He's been very professional. All the paperwork is in order. Once you're ready to proceed, we can schedule a closing. Everything checked out. Every single thing. The house was real. The inspector gave it a clean bill of health. The title company was legitimate. Richard seemed honest and straightforward. We decided to go for it. On Friday, I met Richard at a coffee shop and gave him a cashier's check for $28,500. He gave me a handwritten receipt and a signed agreement stating that the house was off the market and that closing would occur within 30 days. Congratulations, Owen, he said, shaking my hand. I think you and your family are going to be very happy here. I believed him. God help me. I completely believed him. The next 3 weeks were a blur of excitement and preparation. Sarah started planning where all our furniture would go. She bought paint samples for Emma's room. We told our families. Everyone was thrilled for us. My parents drove up from North Carolina to see the house. They were so proud. My dad kept clapping me on the shoulder and saying, "You did good, son. Real good." We scheduled the closing for September 23rd. I took the day off work. Sarah's mother came to watch Emma. We put on our nicest clothes and drove to the Heritage Title Services office, feeling like we were about to start the best chapter of our lives. Linda Chun greeted us in the lobby. She was a small, efficient-looking woman in her 50s with glasses and a briefcase. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, good to see you. We're all set up in the conference room. Mr. Castellano should be here any minute." We sat down at a big wooden table. There were stacks of papers, the deed, the mortgage documents, disclosure forms. I'd brought a cashier's check for the remaining balance, $256,500, plus closing costs. We waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. Linda checked her watch. She stepped out to make a phone call. When she came back, she looked concerned. "I've tried his number 3 times. It's going straight to voicemail. Maybe he's just running late," Sarah said. "Traffic?" "Maybe," Linda said, but she didn't sound convinced. We waited another hour. Linda kept calling. No answer. She called the number Richard had given the title company when he first contacted them. Voicemail. She tried an alternate number. Disconnected. Finally, Linda stood up. "I'm going to make a few more calls. Let me reach out to some colleagues and see if anyone's heard from him. This is very unusual. Sarah's hand found mine under the table. "Owen, something's wrong." "He'll show up," I said. But my stomach was churning. Linda came back 20 minutes later. Her face was pale. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, I think we need to go to the property. Right now." We all drove to 847 Maple Ridge Road. My heart was pounding the entire way. When we pulled up to the house, there was a car in the driveway. A car I didn't recognize. A woman was standing on the front porch, unlocking the door. Linda got out first. Excuse me. Can I help you?" The woman turned around. She was maybe 60 years old, wearing gardening clothes. "Can I help you?" she said back, confused. "Do you live here?" Linda asked. "Yes, I live here. For the past 12 years. Who are you?" I felt the world tilt sideways. Sarah grabbed my arm. "What's happening?" she whispered. Linda showed the woman her business card. "I'm with Heritage Title Services. We were under the impression this property was being sold." The woman's face went from confused to angry. "Sold? By who?" "This is my house. I'm not selling anything." It all came crashing down in that moment. The terrible, impossible truth. Linda pulled out her phone and started making calls. The woman, whose name was Patricia Holloway, invited us inside, still baffled and increasingly upset. We sat in her living room, the same living room I'd toured with Richard Castellano 3 weeks earlier, and listened as she explained that she'd been on vacation in Florida for the past month visiting her sister. She'd just gotten back that morning. "Someone's been in my house," she said, her voice shaking. "Someone showed my house while I was gone?" Linda was on the phone with the title company's main office. I heard her saying words like fraud and police and investigation. I couldn't breathe. I stood up and walked outside. Sarah followed me. We stood on that perfect porch with those rocking chairs, and I bent over with my hands on my knees, trying not to throw up. "Owen, what does this mean?" Sarah said. "Where's our money?" I didn't have an answer. The police came. 2 officers took statements from all of us. They took statements from Patricia Holloway, from Linda Chun, from Sarah and me. They asked us to describe Richard Castellano. They asked for copies of every document we had, the receipt, the purchase agreement, everything. One of the officers, a younger guy with kind eyes, pulled me aside. "Mr. Bennett, I'm not going to lie to you. This is bad. This is a sophisticated scam. The person you dealt with, this Richard Castellano, he's probably not even from around here. He likely targeted this house specifically because the owner was going to be away for an extended period. He may have been watching the property. He created fake documents, posed as the owner, collected your deposit, and disappeared. The chances of recovering your money are slim." "Slim?" I repeated. "What does that mean? 50-50? 20%? He looked at me with genuine sympathy. "Closer to 0, sir. I'm sorry." We drove home in complete silence. When we got back to our apartment, Sarah went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the couch in the dark. Emma was still at her grandmother's house. I was grateful for that. I couldn't face her. Couldn't face telling my 5-year-old daughter that I'd just lost everything we'd saved for her future. $28,500. Gone. Just gone. The next few weeks were the darkest of my life. The police opened an investigation, but it went nowhere. They couldn't find any trace of Richard Castellano. The phone number he'd given me was a burner phone, long since disconnected. The address he'd listed with the title company was fake. The signature on all the documents was meaningless because Richard Castellano probably wasn't even his real name. Linda Chun from Heritage Title Services felt terrible. She kept apologizing, saying she should have done more verification, should have been more careful. But the truth was, the scam was nearly perfect. He'd done everything just right, just legitimate enough to pass basic scrutiny, just convincing enough to fool everyone. Sarah barely spoke to me for 2 weeks. Not because she blamed me exactly, but because she didn't know what to say. What could she say? Our entire future had been stolen. Our savings were gone. We were back to square one, except worse, because now we had nothing and a baby coming in 4 months. I had to tell my parents. That was one of the hardest phone calls I've ever made. My father, who'd been so proud, just went quiet. Finally, he said, "These things happen, son. You'll recover. We'll help however we can." But I could hear the disappointment in his voice. I called the furniture store and asked for extra hours. Started working 6 days a week. Sarah picked up some freelance bookkeeping work she could do from home. We scraped and saved. We borrowed $5,000 from my parents, even though they couldn't really afford it. We stayed in that cramped apartment. Emma never got her own room. The baby, a boy we named Jack, slept in a bassinet next to our bed for his first 2 years. The case went cold. After about 6 months, the detective assigned to it stopped calling with updates. There was simply nothing to update. No leads, no suspects, no recovered funds. I became obsessed for a while with trying to find Richard myself. I'd drive through Richmond looking for his face. I'd scan crowds at grocery stores and gas stations. I'd stay up late reading about real estate fraud, about con artists, about how these scams worked. Sarah begged me to let it go. "It's eating you alive," she said. "We have to move on," but I couldn't. Not for years. We never bought a house. Not in 1987, not in 1990, not ever. The dream died that day on Patricia Holloway's porch. We stayed in apartments, moved to a bigger one when Jack got older, but we never saved up enough again. Every time we'd start to build our savings back up, something would happen. A car would break down. A medical bill would come in. Life just kept happening, and we never quite recovered. Time moved forward the way it always does, whether you're ready or not. Emma started first grade that fall, completely unaware of the financial disaster that had happened to her parents. We decided not to tell her. What was the point? She was 6 years old. She didn't need to know that the house she'd picked out her bedroom in was never really ours to begin with. Jack was born in January of 1988, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, healthy, perfect. I held him in the hospital and made a promise that I'd never be that stupid again. Never trust someone that completely. Never take anything at face value. Sarah went back to work when Jack was 3 months old. We needed the income. Her mother watched both kids during the day. We were surviving, but barely. Every month was a calculation. Rent, utilities, groceries, diapers, daycare. The numbers never quite added up the way we needed them to. I got promoted at the furniture store in 1989, regional manager. It came with a decent raise and better benefits. We were able to move to a 3-bedroom apartment in a better school district. Emma and Jack finally got their own rooms. It wasn't the house on Maple Ridge Road, but it was something. The anger I felt toward Richard Castellano, or whatever his real name was, it didn't go away. It changed shape over the years. At first, it was hot and sharp, like a knife in my chest every time I thought about it. I'd lie awake at night, imagining what I'd do if I ever saw him again. Violent things. Terrible things. Things I'm not proud of thinking. But as the years went on, the anger cooled into something else. Something colder and heavier. Resentment, maybe. Bitterness. A deep, abiding sense of injustice that I couldn't shake. I'd see other families buying houses. Friends, coworkers, neighbors. They'd invite us to housewarming parties. They'd show us around their new kitchens, and their backyards, and their garage spaces. And I'd smile and congratulate them, and feel this gnawing envy mixed with shame. Sarah handled it better than I did. She always could compartmentalize things, focus on what we had rather than what we'd lost. "We have healthy kids," she'd remind me. We have each other. We have jobs. A lot of people have it worse. She was right, of course. But knowing she was right didn't make it hurt any less. In 1992, something strange happened. I got a call from the detective who'd handled our case, Detective Morrison. I hadn't heard from him in almost 3 years. Mr. Bennett, I wanted to give you a call because something came across my desk that might interest you, he said. We arrested a man last week for real estate fraud, similar MO to what happened to you. Posed as a homeowner, showed properties while the real owners were away, collected deposits, disappeared. My heart started racing. Is it him? Is it Richard Castellano? We don't know yet. The man we arrested is using the name David Brennan, but these guys use multiple aliases. He fits the general description you gave us. Late 40s, well-dressed, smooth talker. I was wondering if you could come down to the station and look at a photo lineup. I went that same afternoon. Detective Morrison set me up in a small room with a folder containing 8 photographs. 8 men, all roughly the same age, all with dark hair graying at the temples. I studied each photo carefully. My hands were shaking. I wanted so badly for one of them to be him, to be Richard, to finally have an answer, a name, a person to direct all this rage toward, but none of them were him. None of the faces matched the man who'd shaken my hand and sold me a house he didn't own. I'm sorry, I told Detective Morrison. It's not any of these guys. He nodded, disappointed, but not surprised. It was a long shot. Thanks for coming in anyway. I drove home feeling deflated. Some small part of me had hoped that case would be connected, that we'd finally get justice. But that's not how these stories usually end. Most of the time, the bad guys just get away with it. The 90s passed. Emma grew into a smart, serious teenager. She was good at math, got straight A's, made the honor roll every semester. Jack was the opposite, all energy and chaos, played every sport the school offered, made friends everywhere he went. We told them the story eventually. Emma was 16. Jack was 13. We were sitting around the dinner table in our apartment, and Emma asked why we'd never bought a house like other parents. Sarah and I looked at each other. We'd avoided this conversation for so long, but they were old enough now. They deserved the truth. I told them everything. The ad in the paper, the showing, the deposit, the closing that never happened. I watched their faces as they processed it. Emma looked angry on our behalf. Jack looked confused. Wait, so you just gave some random guy $28,000? Jack said. He wasn't random, I said, defensive. He seemed legitimate. Everything checked out. But you didn't actually verify he owned the house? Emma asked. We verified what we could. We had an inspector. We worked with a title company. We did everything we were supposed to do, except confirm he was actually the owner, Emma said quietly. She didn't mean it cruelly, but it stung anyway. Because she was right. That was the one thing we hadn't done. We'd taken his word for it. We'd assumed the title company had verified ownership on their end. We'd assumed he was telling the truth. After dinner, Sarah pulled me aside. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I lied. It's just hard hearing it laid out like that. Hearing how stupid we were. We weren't stupid. We were trusting. There's a difference. Is there? She didn't have an answer for that. The story affected Emma and Jack in different ways. Emma became hyper-careful about everything. She researched every decision to death, never took anything at face value, questioned everything. When she bought her first car at 19, she had 3 different mechanics look at it before she signed anything. Jack went the other way. He became almost reckless with trust, like he was trying to prove that not everyone was out to scam you. He'd loan money to friends who never paid him back. He'd believe sob stories from strangers. It worried me. You're going to get hurt, I told him once. Maybe, he said, but I'd rather get hurt trusting people and spend my whole life suspicious of everyone. I didn't know how to argue with that. I never really stopped looking for Richard Castellano, even after the photo lineup came up empty. Even after the police officially closed the case in 1995, I couldn't let it go. The internet became a thing in the late 90s. I learned how to use search engines. I'd spend hours at night, after Sarah and the kids had gone to bed, searching for variations of his name. Richard Castellano, Rick Castellano, R. Castellano, real estate fraud, Virginia, 1987. Nothing ever came up. It was like he'd never existed at all. I joined online message boards for fraud victims. There were others out there, people who'd been scammed in similar ways. Some of them had lost more than us. Some had lost their entire life savings. Reading their stories was both comforting and depressing. Comforting because I wasn't alone. Depressing because most of them never got their money back either. One woman on a message board told me she'd tracked down the man who scammed her, found him living in Arizona under a different name. She called the police, tried to press charges. But because the scam had happened in a different state, over 10 years prior, and the statute of limitations had run out, there was nothing they could do. She had to just watch him live his life while she was still dealing with the financial fallout of what he'd done. The system isn't built to help people like us, she wrote. It's built to protect people like them. I started having dreams about Richard. In the dreams, I'd run into him at random places. A grocery store, a gas station, a restaurant. I'd recognize him immediately, and I'd confront him. Sometimes the dream would end with him apologizing, giving me back the money. Sometimes it would end with me hitting him, over and over, until my knuckles were bloody. I never told Sarah about the dreams. Emma graduated high school in 2000, got accepted to Virginia Tech on a partial scholarship. We helped with what we could, but she had to take out loans for the rest. She studied accounting, graduated with honors in 2004, got a good job at a firm in Richmond. Jack graduated in 2003. He didn't go to college right away. Worked construction for a few years, tried to figure out what he wanted to do. Eventually went to community college, studied to be an electrician. Good money, steady work. Sarah and I finally had the apartment to ourselves again. It was strange at first, all that quiet. We'd spent 20 years with kids in the house, and suddenly it was just us. One night in 2005, Sarah asked me a question I wasn't expecting. Do you think about it less now? The house? I was reading the newspaper. I put it down. Honestly? No. I still think about it almost every day. She looked sad. Owen, it's been 18 years. I know how long it's been. You have to let it go. For your own sake. For us. I don't know how, I admitted. I don't know how to just stop caring that someone stole from us and got away with it. Maybe he didn't get away with it, she said. Maybe karma caught up with him. Maybe he's in prison somewhere for something else. Maybe he's dead. You don't know. That's the problem. I don't know. I'll never know. And that not knowing, it eats at me. She reached across the table and took my hand. I need you to try. Please. I need my husband back. The one who isn't constantly angry about something that happened 2 decades ago. I promised her I'd try. And I did try. I really did. I stopped searching his name online. I stopped reading the fraud victim message boards. I stopped having imaginary conversations in my head where I told him exactly what I thought of him. For a while, it worked. Life got better. Sarah and I took a vacation to the beach, just the two of us. First real vacation we'd had in years. We talked about retirement, about what we wanted to do when I finally stopped working. But then something would trigger it. I'd see a house for sale sign. I'd hear someone talking about buying their first home. I'd read a news article about a fraud case. And it would all come rushing back, as fresh and painful as it was in 1987. I retired in 2015 at the age of 62. Took Social Security early because we needed the money. Sarah retired a year later. We downsized to a one-bedroom apartment, saved a bit on rent. Emma got married in 2010, had 2 kids by 2014. Jack got married in 2016, had a daughter a year later. We became grandparents. It was supposed to be the golden years, right? Enjoying our grandchildren, relaxing, traveling a little. But we couldn't travel much because we didn't have the money. We couldn't help our kids with their mortgages or their childcare costs because we were barely scraping by ourselves on Social Security and our small retirement savings. And I'd watch Emma and Jack struggle financially, watch them stress about bills and mortgage payments, and I'd think about that $28,500. What that money could have done for them. How different their lives might have been if we'd had it to help them with college, or a wedding, or a down payment. The weight of it never really went away. Then, in 2019, something impossible happened. I was at the grocery store, a Tuesday morning in March. I was in the produce section, picking out apples, when I saw him. Richard Castellano. Older now, obviously. He'd have to be in his late 70s or early 80s. His hair was completely white. He was thinner, more frail looking, but it was him. I knew it in my bones. The way he stood, the way he moved, the shape of his face. He was with a woman, probably his wife. They were laughing about something, putting items in their cart, completely at ease. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might pass out. My hands started shaking. I put down the apples before I dropped them. I should have called the police. That's what a rational person would have done. But I wasn't thinking rationally. I'd waited 32 years for this moment. I followed them through the store, stayed a few aisles back, watched them shop. They seemed so normal, so ordinary. Just another elderly couple buying groceries. They checked out and walked to the parking lot. I followed at a distance, watched them load their bags into an old Toyota Camry, watched them drive away, but not before I memorized the license plate number. I sat in my car in that parking lot for 20 minutes, just breathing, trying to process what had just happened. Then I drove home and told Sarah. She didn't believe me at first. "Owen, are you sure? It's been over 30 years. People change." "It was him," I said. "I'm certain. What are you going to do?" "I don't know." I called the police the next day. Asked to speak to someone about a cold case. They transferred me around for a while before I got connected to a detective named Palmer. I explained the whole situation, the 1987 fraud case, seeing the suspect at the grocery store, the license plate number. Detective Palmer listened patiently. Then he said, "Mr. Bennett, I understand how frustrating this must be for you. But even if this is the person who defrauded you, the statute of limitations has long since expired. We can't prosecute someone for a crime that old. And honestly, with no physical evidence, no fingerprints, no financial trail, there'd be no case anyway. So that's it? He just gets away with it? I'm sorry, sir. That's the reality." I hung up feeling defeated. Sarah was right there, and she could see it on my face. "They can't do anything," I said. She hugged me. Maybe that's for the best, but I couldn't let it go. Not now. Not when I finally knew where he was. I used the license plate to find his address. Turns out, you can pay websites to do that kind of search now. $20, and I had a name and address. The name on the registration was Frank Morrison. He lived in a modest house about 15 minutes from where Sarah and I lived. Frank Morrison, not Richard Castellano, but I knew it was the same man. I drove by his house one evening, sat across the street in my car, watched the lights on inside, saw shadows moving past the windows, wondered what his life had been like. If he'd scammed other people, if he'd spent our money, if he'd ever thought about us the family he'd stolen from. Sarah didn't know I was doing this. I'd leave the apartment saying I was going for a drive, and I'd end up parked outside Frank Morrison's house, watching. I did this for weeks. One evening in April, I saw him come outside to get his mail. He moved slowly, carefully, like his joints hurt. He was wearing a cardigan and slippers. I got out of my car. I crossed the street. My legs felt like they weren't connected to my body. I was floating, watching myself do this from somewhere far away. "Excuse me?" I called out. "Frank Morrison?" He turned, looked at me with polite confusion. "Yes." I walked up his driveway, stopped about 10 feet from him. "You don't know me, but you used to know me 32 years ago. You sold me a house on Maple Ridge Road." His face didn't change, not even a flicker of recognition or concern. "I'm sorry. I think you have me confused with someone else. I've never sold any property." "Yes, you have. You called yourself Richard Castellano. You took $28,500 from me and my wife. You stole our future." He took a small step back. "I really don't know what you're talking about. I think you should leave." "You remember," I said, my voice shaking. "I know you do. I saw you at the grocery store, and I knew it was you. You can't tell me you don't remember." "I'm going to call the police if you don't leave my property," he said, his voice firmer now. "Good. Call them. Tell them Richard Castellano is alive and well, and living under the name Frank Morrison. Let's see what they have to say." He stared at me for a long moment, and then something changed in his eyes. A coldness came over his face. "Even if what you're saying were true, which I'm not admitting it is, there's nothing you can do about it. It's been over 30 years. You can't prove anything, and the statute of limitations ran out decades ago. So whatever you think happened, whatever you think I did, it doesn't matter. There are no consequences for me." That's when I knew for certain it was him. He just admitted it in so many words. "How many others?" I asked. "How many other families did you do this to?" He didn't answer, just turned and walked back toward his house. "You destroyed us," I shouted. "We lost everything because of you." He stopped at his door, looked back at me. "Nobody forced you to give me that money. You chose to trust me. That's on you." Then he went inside and closed the door. I stood there in his driveway, shaking with rage and grief and the horrible realization that he was right. There was nothing I could do. He'd won, completely and totally. I didn't tell Sarah about the confrontation right away. Came home and said I'd been out driving. But she knew something was wrong. She always knew. A few days later, I told her everything. The surveillance, the confrontation, what he'd said. She cried, not because she was angry at me, but because she was angry at the situation, at the unfairness of it all. "What do we do now?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe we just have to accept that this is how it ends." So that's what we did. We accepted it. I'm 72 years old now. Sarah is 70. We're still in that one-bedroom apartment. Our health isn't great. We worry about money constantly. I lie awake at night sometimes, doing the math in my head. If we'd had that $28,000 in 1987, and if we'd invested it even conservatively, what would it be worth now? Probably $150,000, maybe more. What could we do with $150,000 right now? We could afford better health care. We could help our kids. We could actually enjoy our retirement instead of worrying about every expense. But we don't have it because a man named Richard Castellano, or Frank Morrison, or whatever his real name is, took it from us. And he's living his life, probably sleeping fine at night, while we're still dealing with the consequences 37 years later. I've thought a lot about why I'm telling this story now. What's the point? It's not like I'm going to get justice. It's not like sharing this is going to change anything. but I think maybe other people need to hear it. Need to understand how these scams work, how convincing these people can be, how they can pass every reasonable check and still be lying to your face. And maybe I just need to get it out. Need to stop carrying it alone. Need someone, anyone, to know what happened and to understand why it still matters. Because here's the thing about being robbed. The money is one part of it, but the bigger part, the part that really stays with you, is the violation of trust. Someone looked me in the eye, shook my hand, smiled at my pregnant wife and my 5-year-old daughter, and lied. Lied so convincingly that I never doubted him. And that breaks something in you. It makes you question your own judgment. It makes you suspicious of everyone. I've spent 37 years angry. At him, at myself, at the world. And I'm tired. So tired of carrying this weight. Sarah keeps telling me I need to forgive. Not for his sake, but for mine. Holding on to this anger is only hurting you, she says. He's not losing sleep over it, but you are. She's right. She's always right. But forgiveness is hard when the person who wronged you never apologized, never faced any consequences, never even acknowledged what they did. So I don't know if I can forgive. But maybe I can let go. Maybe I can accept that this is just part of my story, a terrible chapter that shaped who I became, but doesn't have to define me anymore. I hope if you're reading this or hearing this story, you'll be smarter than I was, more careful, more skeptical. I hope you'll verify everything twice. I hope you'll never hand over your life savings to someone based on trust alone. But I also hope you won't let what happened to me make you cynical. Don't let my mistake turn you into someone who can't trust anyone. The world needs trust to function. It needs people who believe in each other's basic goodness. Just be smart about it. That's all. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. And leave a comment telling me, have you or anyone you know ever been scammed? How did you deal with it? I'd genuinely like to know. I'm not alone in this.